What's up, guys? It's your boy Corey, and we're back at it again with another cooking episode. Today, we will be making some pizza and making the dough completely from scratch. And to start, we should focus on the yeast. The yeast is going to allow our dough to rise and give it the nice texture on the inside and a nice crust. So, to start, I wanted to bloom the yeast, which is what I'm doing here, in order to check to see if it's alive. You mix it with some water and throw in a little sugar, and yeah, then you'll see if it's alive or not. And unfortunately, my yeast was pretty lame and didn't really puff up the dough as much as I had wanted it to. And as for my other ingredients, I used all-purpose flour, salt, and olive oil. Simple as that. I used olive oil to make the dough more like a New York style pizza as opposed to a Neapolitan pizza. And that olive oil is the main distinction between the two styles. But what was more important was my hydration, or the ratio of water to flour used. And I used 2 cups of water and added 6 cups of flour, which brought me to a very low hydration ratio of about 33%. Well, yeah, pretty much 33%. Barely enough to bring the dough together. While this makes it much easier to work with, the dough, you sacrifice the crispiness and better texture you get from a wetter dough. So I would suggest using this dough if you're just starting out. It's good to get into the nitty-grittiness of bread making. And now that you've got all of your ingredients into a mixing bowl, you're going to either mix with your nice clean hands or a big fat old wooden spoon. And I use my hands because I love that authentic soft feel of the dough as it forms. And also, it's really messy, and I don't know why. I like getting messy for some reason. But the secret to mixing in this initial stage is to simply be patient. Try not to add extra water, even though this dough is kind of forgiving. Adding too much water, you'll end up with this soupy, battery mess that won't ever become anything like bread. And now that you've got your dough into a shaggy mass, you can begin forming and developing the first quintessential bread making intangible ingredient, which is gluten. Gluten is important to get the dough its nice airy crust. The gluten traps air as the dough expands and gives it all the nice little bubbles and imperfections. As you can see here, we are doing a very simple kneading technique. I am pushing out the dough with my palm and then bring it back in and then rotating. This technique sort of has the same effect as doing push-ups, something I don't do too often, where we are ripping apart the muscle and forming it back again, stronger than ever. And you can see that it's gotten mildly stronger as the elasticity of the gluten protein is shown as the dough bounces right back. And so we return in 3 days' time to this lovely dough that is actually not very lovely because it developed a really ugly crust that reminds me of my skin under my mustache after I shower. And this was a completely self-made problem. I should have wrapped the plastic wrap over the dough more tightly so as to prevent it from drying out, but it was an easy solution. I simply rolled the crust back into the dough, and it was like nothing had happened. So now I am portioning the dough into 5 equal pieces. Obviously, I cannot do this perfectly because I don't have a scale, and so I sort of just eyeballed it and then weighed everything in my hands, which proved to be sort of a crappy method because I had to do a lot of small edits. I had to take some dough from the bigger pieces and tack them onto the smaller pieces. And forming the balls wasn't all that difficult. I kneaded them out to get them nice and smooth, and then I cupped the bottom with my hands and moved them in opposite directions to start forming a seal on the bottom and getting that circular shape. Some of them turned out a lot better than others. Some were nice and baby smooth, while others were old and rugged and grisly. And now we can let it rise for the final time in preparation for our pizza making. So I left them in the oven without the heat on, obviously, on an oiled baking tray for about 6 to 8 hours. And they almost doubled in size, and they were nice and warm now because I had left them out for this period of time, and they weren't in the fridge. And speaking of time, that is our second intangible ingredient. The video, however, misses a significant portion of this important time and progression used in the rising of the dough. However, you can view that exclusive content on the blog. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to announce the return of the blog, which I wanted to bring back because of these times of boredom. But going back to the video, we have now fast forwarded to later on in the day, and as you can see, the person cutting vegetables is not the slim, skilled, and sexy man, but rather someone else. This stranger is my younger sister Whitney, who you saw in the Three Brothers Italian Kitchen video. And now I'm back, unlike that restaurant that because it closed down. Yeah, I kicked my sister off cutting the mushrooms because she was taking too long, and I really just wanted to get this done. And at the time, I didn't feel bad or anything. But looking back, I felt that was a little mean and uncalled for. But I did it again because I'm kind of a control freak. And she really hates it, when I tell her things. She really hates it when anyone tries to tell her things. And so she got all mad and stormed off and sassed me when I asked why she wasn't helping me cut the rest of the vegetables. And that's what I've really noticed in this quarantine is that it really brings out the bad side of people. Everyone's all grumpy and ticked off that they're home. And then they, they just act poorly around people. Or maybe that's just Whitney. Whitney always is like that. Oh, and wow, there's a new pair of hands. And it's not Whitney. It's my other sister, Allie, who really hates when I film her. So she was really dissatisfied with me and how I put her in front of the camera. No, just kidding. She didn't care. She doesn't care about a lot of things. But yeah, that's Allie. And so yeah, now we have all the ingredients prepped and we can begin shaping the pizzas. And I didn't get the glorious money shot of all the doughs once they had risen because clumsy Allie knocked over the camera while I was doing that, and we didn't get a nice picture, so everyone blame Allie in the comments. Yes, blame her. Yeah, so I've gotten the hang of rolling out the dough. You just want to let gravity do the work, slightly tug at the middle, and get a nice crust around the outside. And then if it's not round, you can sort of squidge it around, roll it, stretch it around to the way you want it. Don't use a rolling pin. That will crush all the air bubbles and make a sad, flat pizza. And now, when it comes to the sauce, we have two different schools of thought in our house. On one side, there's me, who believes that the sauce should be made from scratch from a nice jar of canned tomatoes and a little garlic and oil fried all together and simmered for a bit. And that's the sauce you see here. However, then there are the backward savages on the other side who think that this sauce from a jar, steeped in oil and without a hint of tomato flavor, is the way to go. And Reao's sauce, in essence, is just too salty and oily. But, everyone else likes it because my mom under-seasons everything and they don't understand what the perfect amount of salt is and how things should be seasoned. And, now I've told them about, all of these complaints. I've whined about all this, but the real reason I dislike Rao's is because it's such a pain in the butt to scrub off the plates. It requires a Herculean effort. I can't stand how oily it is. And that's all for my annoying rant. As for the toppings, just sprinkle them all over willy-nilly, but make sure the heavier stuff is on the outside, like the broccoli and the vegan sausage or non-vegan sausage, just so that it has solid support. And I forgot to mention that I dusted the bottom of the pizza with lots of cornmeal. That was a big problem when we first tried to make pizza. My parents always brought back the pizzas and were highly annoyed when the pizza did not slide off onto the grill. So make sure it can slide before you put it and take it out to your grill or oven. And you can use a grill or an oven, but we choose to use the grill because it imparts a mild, smoky flavor that is all the rage for my mom. She always has to comment about it while we eat it. And I think maybe using the oven might be more stable and more controllable. So if you don't want to go through all the ins and outs of using this charcoal grill, or if you have a gas grill, maybe that would work. But you just want to get it up to temperatures excess of 500 to between 400 and 500 degrees, just so that it gets a nice crust. And that about covers it. I think I forgot to talk about the final intangible ingredient when making pizza, which is love. Your love goes into making the pizza, as well as sharing it and enjoying it with your friends and family. That sounds cheesy, but this pizza is anything but cheesy. Oh, man. I hate myself. But you know what, folks? That's all for this week's installment of Cory the Herbivore. Tune in next time, and don't forget to like and subscribe.